If I could sit down with my younger self at 50 years old, I wouldn't talk about stocks or savings or which car to buy for retirement. I'd talk about the truth. The kind of truth you only understand once you've been through it. I'm 70 now. I've been retired for over 10 years, and I've learned some hard lessons, not from books or seminars, but from life itself. Retirement isn't always what you imagine it to be. Some things hit you quietly, some catch you by surprise, and some you only realize when it's too late to change them. That's why I'm making this video, to share with you the 10 things about retirement I wish someone had told me earlier. These are not opinions. They're lived experiences. And if even one of them helps you prepare better, live better, or avoid the mistakes I made, then this talk will be worth it. So take a deep breath, settle in, and let's talk about what really happens after the working years end. 1. Retirement isn't a vacation. It's a new life chapter. When I first retired, I thought I had it all figured out. I imagined long, slow mornings with coffee, fishing trips whenever I pleased, and a sense of freedom I had been chasing my whole working life. And for a little while, it felt exactly like that. The first few weeks were great. I didn't have to set an alarm. I didn't have meetings. I didn't have to wear a tie or deal with traffic. It felt like a reward, like I had finally made it. But then something unexpected happened. The days started to blend together. The excitement faded, and in its place came a strange emptiness. I didn't miss my job, but I missed having a reason to get out of bed. I missed being needed. I missed feeling productive. Retirement, I realized, wasn't one long vacation. It was an entirely new chapter of life, and I hadn't prepared for it. You see, for over 40 years, my identity was tied to what I did. I was a provider, a worker, a manager, a problem solver. But when I retired, all of that stopped. No one tells you how quiet it gets when the emails stop, the phone doesn't ring, and you're no longer in the loop. The silence can feel like freedom at first, but over time, it starts to sound a lot like isolation. What I wish I knew earlier was this: retirement isn't the end of something. It's the beginning of something else. It's not about escaping work. It's about building a new rhythm. You need something to look forward to. A hobby is good, but it's not enough. You need purpose. Something that gives your day structure and your mind a reason to stay engaged. For me, it took time to adjust. I started volunteering at the local library. I joined a walking group. I even began mentoring a few young folks who were just starting their careers. Slowly, I found a new kind of purpose, not the same as before, but just as meaningful. That's when retirement began to feel like living again, not just resting. So if you're planning for retirement, remember this: don't just plan for how much money you'll need. Plan for what you're going to do with your time. Ask yourself, what will make me feel alive when the job no longer defines me? Because the vacation ends, but life keeps going. Make sure it has direction. 2. Loneliness creeps in quietly. One thing no one warned me about was how quiet life gets after you retire. Not peaceful quiet. I'm talking about the kind of quiet that sneaks in and starts to settle deep in your chest. The kind of quiet that makes you miss the office chatter, even the parts you used to complain about. I didn't expect that. I thought I'd enjoy the peace. And at first I did. But eventually, I realized it wasn't peace. It was loneliness. After I retired, my social world shrank almost overnight. Coworkers I used to see 5 days a week disappeared. We promised to stay in touch, and for a while we did. Lunches here and there, a birthday message. But life moves on. People get busy, and suddenly it's just you, your house, and the ticking of the clock. I live in a quiet neighborhood. My kids are hours away, raising families of their own. I don't blame them. They have their lives, and I'm proud of them. But the distance is real. You can feel it on the weekends when you're hoping someone calls. You feel it when you cook dinner for one. You feel it when you go days without hearing your name spoken out loud. What surprised me most was that loneliness doesn't always feel like sadness. Sometimes it's just a numbness, a lack of connection. You stop laughing as much. You speak less. And the longer it goes, the harder it gets to reach out. It becomes easier to stay silent than to admit you're feeling isolated. But here's the truth I've learned. Loneliness doesn't go away on its own. You have to fight it. You have to reach out first. I started by saying hello to the man who walked his dog past my house every morning. One day I asked him his name. A week later we were having coffee. Then I joined a group at the senior center. Then a book club. It felt strange at first. Like I didn't belong. But connection takes time. You have to plant the seeds early. If you're heading into retirement, start building your social life now. Not later. Don't wait for people to come to you. Find communities. Reconnect with old friends. Talk to your neighbors. Smile at strangers. Because no matter how much money you have, no matter how nice your house is, loneliness will find its way in, unless you keep the door open to connection. For 3, I spent like I was still earning. When I stopped working, I thought I had a solid financial plan. I had savings, a pension, Social Security. I even sat down with a financial advisor a few times before retiring. I felt prepared, but what I didn't prepare for was my own habits. For decades, I was used to living on a steady income. Every 2 weeks, like clockwork, money would come in, and I'd spend without much worry. I wasn't reckless, but I was comfortable, eating out twice a week, picking up things for the house, buying toys for the grandkids, little things that didn't feel like much at the time. But once I retired, something didn't add up. The money wasn't coming in the way it used to, but I was still spending like I had a paycheck. The first year, it didn't feel like a big deal, but then I looked at my retirement account and my heart sank. I had withdrawn more than I planned. I wasn't just spending. I was slipping into a pattern that could have long-term consequences. It was a hard pill to swallow. I had to admit that I needed to change. I started tracking every expense, not just the big stuff, but the small daily things that add up. Coffee runs, subscriptions I forgot I had, online shopping late at night. It was eye-opening. I created a monthly budget, and at first, it felt like punishment, like I was losing freedom. But soon, I started to feel something else: control, confidence, respect for the money I had spent decades earning. I realized that retirement wasn't about cutting back. It was about spending smarter. Now I prioritize what matters: experiences over things, family visits over fancy gadgets, simple pleasures over impulse buys. And I've learned that living within your means in retirement doesn't mean living small. It means living intentionally. So here's my advice. Before you retire, look closely at your spending habits, not just what you can afford, but what really brings you joy. Because the scariest thing isn't running out of money. It's realizing you spent it on things that didn't matter. My 4. I still wanted to work, just differently. When I retired, I thought I was done with work for good. I had spent over 4 decades showing up early, staying late, solving problems, managing teams, and hitting goals. I was tired. I was ready for a break. And for a while, the break was welcome. I did nothing, and I mean really nothing, for months. No schedule, no obligations, just rest. But something strange started to happen. After the novelty wore off, I began to miss working. Not the meetings, not the deadlines, not the stress. I missed the feeling of being useful, of contributing to something bigger than myself, of knowing someone counted on me. It wasn't about money. It was about meaning. I realized that while I didn't want to go back to a 9-to-5 job, I still had skills. I still had experience. I still had wisdom to offer. And just because I was retired didn't mean I was done giving. So I looked for new ways to work, not for a paycheck, but for a purpose. I started mentoring a young man I met at church who was starting his own business. I shared advice, gave him feedback, and watched him grow. That felt good. Then I started writing little articles online about the lessons I'd learned in my career. People started reading them. Some even reached out with questions. Again, I felt useful. And most recently, I started helping out at a local workshop for veterans, teaching basic woodworking. All of these things gave me a sense of value. They didn't drain me the way a full-time job used to. They energized me because I chose them. I worked on my terms. That's the beauty of retirement. It gives you freedom to choose how you give your time. If you're heading into retirement, don't assume you'll never want to work again. You might surprise yourself, and that's okay. Find something that aligns with your passion. Volunteer, teach, consult, build, fix, share. Work doesn't have to stop. It just has to shift. Retirement isn't the end of your usefulness. In many ways, it's when your most meaningful work can begin. 5. I wish I took care of my health sooner. When I was younger, I told myself I'd focus on my health later, after the next deadline, after the kids got older, after retirement. I always had an excuse. I was busy, I was tired, I'd get to it, eventually. But eventually came. And now, at 70, I'm living with the consequences of all the times I put my health last. I have arthritis in both knees. My back aches if I sit too long. I take pills for blood pressure and cholesterol. Some mornings, just getting out of bed takes effort. And let me tell you, it's humbling. Because I know now that some of this could have been prevented, or at least delayed, if I had simply moved more, eaten better, slept more regularly, and paid closer attention to the little warning signs my body was giving me. The truth is, health doesn't wait for you to be ready. It just keeps moving. Quietly and sometimes quickly, in the wrong direction if you're not paying attention. And here's the part no one talks about. In retirement, your health becomes everything. You don't have work to distract you. You don't have the same level of daily movement. If you're not intentional about taking care of your body, things can go downhill fast. I've learned to make small changes that help. I walk every day, even if it's slow. I stretch. I eat a little less sugar. I drink more water. I do my best to sleep well. I'm not perfect, but I try. Because at this age, effort matters more than perfection. I also learned that mental health is just as important. I practice gratitude. I try to stay curious. I challenge my brain with puzzles and reading. And when I feel low, I talk about it, because silence can be heavier than illness. If you're younger than me, please don't wait like I did. Start taking care of yourself today, not someday. You may not see the benefits right away, but your future self, 10, 20, 30 years from now, will thank you. Retirement is not the time to begin the battle for your health. It's the time to reap the results of the care you gave yourself all along. 6. Time with family is more precious than money. I spent most of my working life trying to provide. I wanted to make sure my kids had everything they needed: a roof over their heads, food on the table, a good education, opportunities I never had. I thought that was what made me a good father. And in some ways, it did. But what I didn't realize back then was how much I traded in the process. I missed school plays because of meetings. I missed family dinners because I was traveling. I told my kids, "We'll do that later, more times than I can count." Now in retirement, I have more time than I ever did. But my kids are grown. They have jobs, kids of their own, lives that move fast. And I cherish every call, every visit. But I also feel the weight of the time I lost. There's a saying that hit me hard once. Children spell love T-I-M-E. And I can't go back and give them more time when they were young. But I can be present now. I can show up. I can listen. I can be there. I've learned to make the most of the moments I have. I play board games with my grandson. I call my daughter just to hear how her day was. I write letters to my granddaughter so she can keep them when she's older. These aren't grand gestures. They're little choices that say, "I'm here and you matter." And here's the thing. Your family doesn't care if you had the nicest car or the biggest house. They remember how you made them feel. Did you laugh with them? Did you listen? Did you show up when it counted? I used to think legacy was what I left behind in a will. Now I know it's what I leave in people's hearts. So if you're still working hard to provide, that's noble. But don't forget to be there too. Because money can always be earned, but time, Time only moves in one direction, and when it's gone, it doesn't come back. 7. Money can't replace meaning. When I first retired, I thought money was the most important part. I was proud that I had saved well, planned ahead, and didn't need to worry too much about bills or basic living. And don't get me wrong, having financial security in retirement is a blessing. It gives you freedom. It gives you choices. But here's what I learned. Money can only do so much. It can keep the lights on, but it can't keep your heart full. I remember waking up one morning, maybe 6 months into retirement. My bills were paid, I had no obligations, and yet I felt empty. The kind of emptiness that doesn't come from hunger or sadness. It was like I had nothing to do that mattered. No one needed me. No one was waiting for me. I had freedom, yes, but no direction. And that's when it hit me. I didn't need more money. I needed meaning. All those years working, I had a reason to get out of bed. People relied on me. I had goals, projects, conversations, decisions to make. And suddenly, that all disappeared. Retirement stripped away the structure I had lived by for decades, and I hadn't built anything to replace it. So I had to find something new to care about. Not for profit, not for praise, just for purpose. I started by planting a small vegetable garden in the backyard. It wasn't much, but watching things grow gave me joy. Then I joined a community group that picked up groceries for homebound seniors. It made me feel like I still mattered. I started writing short reflections, just for myself. And later, I shared a few with my children. They told me it helped them understand me better. The point is, meaning doesn't have to be something big. It can be found in helping a neighbor, learning something new, being present for someone who needs you. It's about waking up with intention. If you're approaching retirement, don't just ask yourself how much you'll have in the bank. Ask yourself what will give your life meaning when the applause stops and the office doors close for good. Because at the end of the day, we don't just need comfort. We need connection, contribution, and purpose. 8. Downsizing was freedom, not failure. For years, I held on to the house my wife and I raised our kids in. It was big, familiar, full of memories, birthdays, late-night talks, first steps, last hugs. Every corner of that house held a piece of my life. Letting go of it felt like letting go of part of her. And I wasn't ready for that. Even after retirement, I stayed. I kept the lawn mowed, fixed what needed fixing, paid the property taxes, and tried to fill rooms that had long gone quiet. People asked me gently if I ever thought about moving somewhere smaller. I always said no. It felt like surrender, like giving up. But deep down, I knew the truth. The house was too much, too big, too quiet, too full of memories that sometimes comforted me, but often just reminded me of who was no longer there. It became more burden than home. One day I sat down at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee and asked myself a hard question. Am I keeping this house out of love or out of fear? I didn't like the answer, so I did something I never thought I would. I sold it. I moved into a smaller place, closer to my daughter, a place with less space, but more light, less history, but more energy. And something incredible happened. I felt free. Free from constant maintenance, free from climbing stairs, free from the emotional weight that old walls can hold. Downsizing didn't feel like losing anything. It felt like gaining back a part of myself that I didn't know I had buried. Now, my days are simpler. I know where everything is. I clean less. I worry less. I spend more time outside, and I feel more connected to the people around me. If you're holding on to something that no longer fits your life, ask yourself why. Is it serving you, or are you serving it? Letting go doesn't mean you've failed. Sometimes it means you're finally ready to move forward. 9. Retirement could last longer than you think. When I was younger, I figured retirement would be 10 or 15 years of slowing down, maybe some travel, and then, well, I didn't really think much beyond that. I never imagined I'd be sitting here at 70, retired for over a decade, still active, still living, still looking ahead. No one prepares you for the possibility that retirement might last 30 years or more. That's not just a vacation. That's a whole second adulthood. And if you're not planning for that kind of timeline, you might find yourself in trouble. Financially, it's a big deal. I've seen friends who thought they had enough saved, only to realize, too late, that they had outlived their money. Medical costs go up. Inflation creeps in. Life happens. A nest egg that seemed solid in your 60s can look a lot smaller in your 80s. But it's not just about money, it's about energy. It's about focus. It's about making decisions today that your 85-year-old self will thank you for. That means staying healthy, mentally and physically. That means keeping your social circle alive. That means continuing to learn, to grow, to evolve. Retirement isn't a finish line. It's a long and winding road, and you've got to pack enough supplies for the journey. I know folks in their 90s who still go on walks every morning, who still volunteer, who still laugh like teenagers. And I also know others who gave up too soon, who stopped moving, stopped trying, and life slowly stopped responding. If you're in your 50s or 60s and thinking about retirement, plan for longevity. Don't assume you'll slow down completely. Plan for how you'll stay engaged, how you'll manage your finances not just for 10 years, but for 20, even 30, because chances are you'll be here longer than you expect. And trust me, when you've got a few decades of freedom ahead of you, it's a gift, but only if you prepare to live it fully. 10. Your mindset is everything. If there's one thing that matters more than money, more than health, even more than planning, it's mindset. How you think, how you see the world, how you choose to show up each day. That's what makes or breaks a retirement. I've met people with very little, small pensions, modest homes, but they wake up smiling, grateful for the sunshine, happy to sit on the porch with a cup of coffee and say hello to the neighbors. And I've met others with plenty, big bank accounts, luxury vacations, but they carry bitterness in their voices and regret in their eyes. They count what they've lost and not what they have. And it shows. When I first retired, I didn't realize how much of life after work would be shaped by attitude. I thought it was all about logistics, budgeting, healthcare, time management, and those things are important. But what I've come to see is that your inner life, your mindset, determines whether those years feel full or empty. For me, it started with 2 words I began saying to myself each morning. Still here. It sounds simple, maybe even silly, but it grounded me. On days when my body ached, when the phone didn't ring, when old memories made my heart heavy, I said those words, still here. That meant I had another shot, another sunrise, another chance to be kind, to learn something new, to call someone I loved. I chose to focus on what I can do, not what I can't. I chose to be curious instead of cynical, to be open instead of closed. And that choice changed everything. I'm not saying it's easy. Some days are hard. Retirement brings its own griefs. Lost roles, lost people, lost routines. But you still have a say in how you meet the day. You still get to decide whether to shrink or stretch, whether to complain or create, whether to close the door or open your heart. Your mindset won't change your circumstances overnight, but it will change the way you carry them. And that might be the most powerful lesson I've learned in all these years. If you've made it this far, thank you. I know this wasn't a quick list or some flashy advice. It was real. It came from a place of reflection, of honesty, of wanting to pass on something that matters. I'm not an expert. I'm just a man who's lived through it. Retirement, the transition, the lessons, the surprises. And if there's one thing I want to leave you with, it's this. You are not too late. You are not too old. You have not missed your chance. Whether you're just starting to plan or you've been retired for years, it's never too late to shift, to grow, to forgive yourself, to reconnect, to make your life feel more like your own again. Retirement isn't a stopping point. It's a turning point, and you get to decide where it leads. So take what speaks to you and leave the rest. But most of all, don't go through it alone. Talk to someone. Share your story. Join a community. Find your people. And if this video helped you, if it felt like sitting down with an old friend, I hope you'll share it with someone you care about, a spouse, a sibling, a neighbor, someone who might need to hear these words too. And if you'd like to hear more reflections like this, subscribe. I don't post to go viral. I post because these conversations matter, because your story matters, and because we're all walking this road together. Take care of yourself. You've earned it. And remember, you're still here, and that means something.